Hey everyone, welcome back to the Falcon Project on Calico's Garage. This is episode number 21, and in this episode we're going to be working on installing the turbo and all the associated bits and pieces along with that. I've got a onboard air system that I'm going to be hooking up in the back to use for boost control, and wow, it's like it's kind of foggy in here when I'm breathing. It is about, I think, 2 degrees outside. On my way here, I passed a dead tauntaun, so just to give you an idea how cold it is. But anyway, I've got the turbo here, kind of where it was in the last episode. I did get the Heim joint bolt that I'm going to use to mount it, so it'll kind of hang like that. And then I got some bolts for here, and I've got the tube I'm going to cut into some sleeves that will go on here like that. You know, obviously it'll be like maybe 1 inch long so that these can screw in. And then off of those, I'm going to run the 5/8 rod from each of these 3 from the tubes, and then that will attach to a plate up here that this will hang from, and then that should support the weight of the actual turbo itself to relieve it from the actual exhaust pipe that I'm going to run here. And I did also ran to Summit and got some stainless tubing to use for the exhaust. I got the 4-inch for the actual exhaust that'll come out right down there. And then I've got some 3-inch that I'm going to use to connect from the headers to the turbo. And then I got some 1 3/4 down here, which I will use for the wastegate. And I've already got the piping for the intercooler, which is all aluminum. That's in that box down there. And the flange that comes with the blow-off valve is also aluminum, so I'll be able to just weld that on. And speaking of welding, I did get a TIG welder, specific TIG welder, AC/DC, so that I'm able to weld aluminum, because the Simder welder, multi-purpose one that I had, it works fantastic for MIG welding and stick welding, which I don't do, never have, probably never will. It has a plasma cutter, and it does the TIG, which is what I used up here to weld this piece, if you remember, but it does not do AC TIG welding, which you have to do for aluminum. So I ended up picking this up. It was pretty inexpensive. I got the foot pedal, and then I got all the associated bits and bobs to do that. So I will probably also use that to do the exhaust piping for the stainless, because TIG welding stainless is kind of something you have to do. I mean, you can MIG weld it, but if you want pretty welds, basically, you want to TIG weld it. And I want pretty welds, so I'm going to give my shot at TIG welding again. Didn't turn out too bad up there. I did need a little bit more practice to keep from blowing through. I've watched some more videos and stuff like that, so I guess we'll see how that goes. Probably not going to be something I'm going to do for a while because it's so cold in here. In fact, just in the short time I've been talking, I can no longer feel my hands or my feet. So with that being said, let's get to it. All right, so I was able to mock up the plate for the turbo hanger. That's what I came up with. It will just go right like that. And then the heim joint will attach through there. And then I made these sleeves for the bolts. And then these will just weld on there and then come across to the hanger. There'll be 3 of them. I'm not sure how strong that'll be, if I will need, like an additional hanger over here or something. But once I get those 3 mounted, I'll be able to get an idea how sturdy it is, and hopefully that'll be fine. I'm also going to put some gussets in between them so it's kind of one solid unit. But let me go ahead and get this cut out, and we'll go to the next step. All right, I've got the brace tacked into place, and it is pretty solid with just a few tacks. I don't think I'm going to have to put any other supports like down here or anything. I think this is going to be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and take the bolts out, undo this, and then take it over to the table and finish welding it. And should be good. There we go. Turbo is hanging completely supported. That's what I'm talking about. Now, the hard part is trying to figure out how to clock this, because this pipe has to connect here. So I'm thinking it'll go down, under, and up. And then this has to go to the intercooler. But I'm not sure how to route that, because right here is going to be the radiator. And I've already got that mounted, or at least I've got the mount for it done. And I'm not sure that there's going to be enough room here for all of this, plus the radiator hose connections. The top one's fine, but this one here, I think the output's like right here. And that's going to be in the way of this. Either I'm going to have to redo the mount shift the radiator over, which will make this even harder because it'll have to come out, down, around, and in. And this might get in the way of that. Do I mount the radiator in the back? This is a dilemma. So turbo pretty much has to go here. There's really no other place that it can go. I'm going to have to do some figuring and see what I can come up with. But in all likelihood, I'm either going to end up having to move the radiator over this way or do a remote radiator in the back, which I'm not opposed to, but my bank account is opposed to that because that's going to require a whole bunch of stuff that isn't cheap. All right, let me see what I can come up with. All right, after some cutting and measuring and just a lot of grinding and cutting and grinding and cutting, this is what I have come up with for the exhaust going from the turbo logs to the actual turbo itself. I was able to, I kind of cut this a little bit too much, so I was able to tack it using the new Yes Welder TIG welder, and gotta say it actually came out pretty good. So now I just have to tack everything together. I did kind of tack this to the flange in a few places, and obviously it's not the greatest, but I can go back over it and make sure that it's nice and solid. So I'm going to go ahead and tack these two pieces together because they're just being held by tape, and then I will tack these together, and once that is done, I'll go ahead and test fit it for a final time. And assuming everything is fitting up nicely, I will go ahead and start finish welding it. The wastegate, I'm thinking, is going to go right in this area. So as it comes out of the exhaust manifold, it'll come this way, and then I'll have it exit right here, so it's kind of a straight shot right before it goes up to the turbo. I'm hoping there's enough room there. If not, I guess I could do it here. Then it's going to be kind of hanging down low. I'd really rather not do that. Alternatively, I could put it right here where it exits the exhaust. The only problem is in that location, right in front of it is where the radiator, I don't know if the bottom one, I don't know if that's the input or the output, but that's going to be kind of right there. So I'll have to kind of figure that part out once I get the radiator installed. But for now, let me go ahead and get this tacked together, hook it back up, make sure everything's fitting correctly, and then I can go ahead and start finish welding it. Okay. There we go. Tacked up. Let's see if it fits. That looks pretty darn good to me. I just need to tack the pipe into the flange here. Like that. That is how that's going to sit. Not too shabby, if I do say so myself. All right, let me go ahead and get that tacked, and then we can take it off and go ahead and finish weld it. All right, it is welded. It took way longer than I was expecting, but it came out okay. Not great, just okay. And there's a couple places that I blew through, so I'm going to have to MIG weld those closed. But that's okay. It'll do the job. I'm tired. I'm going in now. We'll catch back up tomorrow. All right, so I did some more work and I got the wastegate pipe welded on. What I ended up doing was, some may call it cheating, but you get the same result, right? I ended up getting some stainless steel MIG wire, and I will tell you that it is so much easier to MIG weld than it is to TIG weld. I mean, I can appreciate the TIG weld, but I mean, if you look at that, that looks pretty darn good, in my opinion. The only drawback to MIG welding with stainless is that it tends to spit a lot. It's almost like if you are MIG welding with flux wire or flux core wire, which if you don't use gas, that's what you use. It's real messy and it spits everywhere. Normally with like regular carbon steel MIG wire, it doesn't do that nearly as much, but for some reason on the stainless it does. But nothing a grinder can't help, and those welds came out pretty darn good. So the next step is to get, well, what do I need to do? I need to get the exhaust pipe, the 4-inch, which is over here. I need to get this connected to here, and then that's gonna basically come out, down, and then straight out. It'd be kind of like a long S. It's gonna come out like right in this area here. So let me go ahead and get that mocked up and welded, and we'll catch back up in a minute. After quite a bit of work, this is what I've come up with for the exhaust. I needed to have it make a really sharp 90 down, and then there are some body panel mounts that I had to snake it around. So it's like that. And the stainless MIG wire is working quite nicely for tacking, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and weld the whole thing with the MIG because it's easier. I can fill gaps, and there are quite a few gaps. And I'm not too concerned with back purging because this is exhaust, so it's not going to be sucking anything into the turbo. This is all just coming out to the atmosphere, so it's just going to be blowing everything out. So I'm not going to worry about back purging to get it, you know, pristine on the backside. As long as it is solid, that's all I care about. So let me go ahead and do that. All right, just a bit of welding, and the hot side is pretty much done. This is the pipe that you just saw me welding. Got all that done. I got the wideband O2 sensor bung welded in, and the sensor's installed, and it just kind of runs out right here. And the exhaust comes out right there, which is a good spot for it. Originally, I was going to have it come out here, but I didn't really want to cut a hole in the fender. So I ended up just having it dump out down there, and that will work just fine. The next piece that I have is for the wastegate. I just need to put it back there. And the dump tube here for the wastegate is going to point this direction. So I have this pipe for that. I need to cut it and shape it, but it's probably going to dump out straight this way. And then I will have it probably dump out like right here. So I don't want to have it get too close to the tire on that side because there's not that much space. And I really don't want it on this side because then it's getting too far forward. So probably just like a dump right there would be just fine. Once I get that done, that will be the hot side complete. And then I'll have to do the cold side, which originally I was going to have the intercooler mounted underneath, something like, let me set you down here, kind of something like this, but tilted back. But I don't think now, looking at it, there's going to be enough room to do that. That would be the absolute easiest thing. I may still, I don't know. But alternatively, it can go up top here. And the only downside of doing it there is I won't be able to run the grill in the front, so it won't have a grill, which kind of gives the Falcon part of its look, but I guess sacrifices need to be made. The hard part about putting it here as opposed to underneath is going to be routing the pipe, because it'll have to come out here and end up coming in there. So if it comes through here, if I cut a hole, you know, here or something, for it to come through. And then kind of the same on this side so that it can end up coming through here and then snaking up to here where it will connect. That part I'm going to have to figure out. I've got quite a bit of figuring to do actually regarding that. So at least I've got the hot side done. That is a big mark off the list. It's got the support bracket nice and sturdy, plus this, so this is not going anywhere. I also have to run the oil feed and oil drain. The feed's going to come from over by the oil filter, and the drain is going to go, I don't know if you can see it back there, but on the side of the oil pan there is a 10AN fitting that I can connect it to. So that'll work out great. There we go. Got the dump pipe for the wastegate welded. And I did go ahead and TIG weld it because I figured I'd practice, because I'm going to need to TIG weld the aluminum for the cold side. And since I didn't have to back purge, I still had enough gas to do it. So that is that. Let me go ahead and throw it on and I will show you what it looks like installed. All right, the dump pipe is installed, and that is where it's going to exit. I decided to put it there. That way it keeps it away from the tire, and I didn't actually want to put it lower because since the tires are actually raised up, when I lower it, there's really not going to be a whole lot of room where the pipe is there now. So I guess once I lower it, this will be fine, but this one I'm a little worried about. I mean, there is still, I don't know, there'll be about 5 or 6 inches. That should be a good. So the hot side is now completely done. So check that off the list. And now I just have to start working on the cold side. But before I do that, I'm going to put the radiator in. I'm going to have to move the mount because where I had it originally, it was over towards the turbo, and with all the piping and stuff, there's not going to be enough room for the coolant hoses to connect. So I'm going to have to move it over, which means I'm going to have to cut the welds on the mount and just shift them over to the other side. Not too big of a deal, but just a little extra work. So I'm going to do that now, get that mounted, and we'll go from there. Got the radiator relocated. Just had to cut it from here and here and then just slide it over so it's welded on there. As you can see, it is a tight fit here, but there is probably about at least a 1/4 inch space. So that isn't going anywhere, and it's actually kind of sticking out at the bottom. It'll kind of pull in a little bit more, so it might increase to like a 1/2 inch clearance, but still that's plenty fine. I've got the wastegate totally plumbed up. I've got the I guess it's a boost reference from the impeller over to the bottom of the wastegate, and then of course I've got the onboard air system going to the top along with the pressure sensor so that I can use boost control. Got it wired and routed up through here, so it kind of keeps it away from the turbo, so that worked out pretty good. I think I'm going to call it a night for now. It's getting kind of late, and I really need to figure out what I'm going to do with the cold side, because the more I'm thinking about it, the more I am leaning towards just putting it right there. And then I don't really want to cut that grill at all. I might see if I can come up with some type of alternative grill to kind of go around the intercooler so that there's still some type of grill, because I think if there wasn't anything, it would look kind of funky. Oh, the other thing I got was the turbo blanket. Got that from Amazon today. Hopefully it'll help kind of keep the heat away, because I'm going to have a headlight right here. Of course, the exhaust is right there, right behind it, so I may end up having to wrap that, but I'll probably have to wait and see once I get the lights and everything. But that's going to be kind of like one of the last things that I'm going to worry about. We are getting really close to the first fire up. I think once I get the radiator completely mounted, I mean, it's in there secure right now, but the bottom isn't mounted, so it can still kind of swing out there. And then I also need to plumb from here to that port, and then from here right to there. That's a little quick, easy one right there. The one at the bottom, it'll probably have to snake around, go down and in. I might have to just end up getting one of those flexible hoses, whether it's metal or rubber or something, just to kind of snake it around there. And then I think once I get the radiator hooked up, what else do I need? Oh, so on the fuel pressure regulator, there is a vacuum port here, and then also on the wastegate there is a vacuum port, and both of those are going to have to get hooked to the ports that are underneath the intake, which are currently blocked off with plugs because I didn't think I was going to need anything.
So for some reason my mic cut out here, but basically what I'm saying is that I'm just going to work on removing the intake and getting the vacuum lines installed, and then once I've done that I will catch back up with you guys. Well, that's what I've come up with. I went ahead and just cut that out, and that mounts really good right there. I'll still be able to use the grill to cover all of that up, and then I can figure out something to do on the sides over here to cover that, whether I add some more little strips to this piece to put around it or something, but that's all cosmetic. I just mainly want to get this where it's going to be and plumbed in, so now I can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on routing the cold side.
So this is what I've come up with for the routing. Both sides, it's going to make a 90. And on this side, it's going to kind of come up at an angle, go into here, which is going to come out right in this area, and then come out, up, and then connect. And then on this side, I've got just enough room in here for this pipe to snake kind of through here, and then it will come out and then connect up here to the impeller. I guess that's what that's called, the cold side. So I've got all of the pipes and everything and some connectors. I was hoping that there would be some 45s, but there's not. But I do have a bunch of aluminum, plenty of piping. The only thing I will need to get is going to be an adapter to go from this size, 102 millimeter, down to whatever the 3-inch is. I don't know if I'll do like a 90. That would probably be the easiest if they make such a thing. Otherwise, I'll have to do just a straight, shrink down, and then I'll do a 90 with a pipe. But either way, that'll work. And I definitely have plenty of the aluminum pipe, and I can weld it because I've got the new AC/DC welder. So that'll be my first go around with welding aluminum. So hopefully that works out. I am getting pretty low on the argon, so I hope I don't need to go get more of that. But if I do, I do. So let me see what I need to come up with pipe-wise, get those cut to length, and then I can start mocking everything up. We've gotten to a pretty important step. I'm going to go ahead and program the Holley terminator. And in order to do that, I need to hook up battery power. So let's do that. And let's hope we don't let any of the magic smoke out. Everything's good in here. All right, let's see what happens. No smoke yet. Of course, I have the kill switch turned off. So I guess this is just mainly a test to make sure that's working. I don't see or smell any smoke. That is a good sign. Let me tighten down that battery terminal, and then I will hit the kill switch. or turn it on, I should say, and see what happens. All right, the battery is hooked up. Nothing here. Nothing there. Nothing here. That is all good. We're good so far. Now, let me turn on the ignition, and that should make this light up. All of these. It should engage that to turn this on, and I should have the screen for the Terminator X turn on. All plugged in? Yeah, it is. Okay. So let's see what happens. All right, we're looking good. Don't see anything on the Terminator yet, though. Let me do some investigating. All right, I think I figured out the problem. The circuit breaker was turned off for the board. Now it's on. Oh, yeah, there we go. It is connected. Well, heck yeah. All right, let me bring in closer. We'll go ahead and run through the calibration. All right, so let's start the wizard. I've got my cheat sheet here on my phone with what I hope is all the settings I need. So we want MPFI, multi-port fuel injection. Is a GMLS. Number of cylinders is 8. Yep, that's the firing order. Let's go liters. And it is a 5.3. Target idle. Let's go with 800. There we go. We can adjust that later. Camshaft is 230, so below 235 degree duration. It is a 24 tooth reluctor. Fuel pressure is 60. Injectors, fuel injector clinic. Other. There we go. Fuel injector 1000. Fuel injector clinic 1000. We have a turbo. We have a 4-bar map sensor. Don't see a 4-bar, so I guess we'll go with that one. Wide open throttle ignition at 0 psi. Say 30. I mean retard per pound of boost. It's 0.7, if I remember correctly.
We can always adjust it later. Wide open throttle target airflow. Say 11.5. Air fuel ratio per 7 pounds. We'll just go with 2 for now. Looks like that is it. So it's uploading it to the Holly. Cycle the engine to complete the operation. Turn it off. Wait a few seconds. Turn it back on. All right, perform a throttle position sensor auto set. Let's go ahead and do that. Your ignition is on, engine is not started. Okay. Slowly press the pedal to the floor, then slowly release. Do that twice. And next, TPS auto set successful. Excellent. Done. And I believe that is it. All right, we are welded up. Those are not the best welds, but for my very first time welding aluminum, I think that came out pretty darn good. There's a few dimes in there, spare change. But that means the cold side is done, and now I can actually hook it up and get everything plumbed in. And then once that's done, I can install the radiator, and I can start it. Can't wait. The cold side is now done, which means the entire turbo system is done. I welded in the blow-off valve flange, and so now I can install that and hook up the vacuum line that I ran earlier, and then the turbo is completely done. So let me go ahead and add that blow-off valve real quick. I'll be right back. Okay. Here we go. Blow-off valve installed. With that, the turbo is done. Let's mark it off. Installed turbo, hot and cold sides is done. You know what that means? It's time to give it a test fire. I'm pretty sure everything is set up and ready to go. I've got gas in it. I've tested the pump, make sure that there's no leaks. There was a couple. I had to fix those, a little extra work, but now there are no leaks, and I set the pressure to 60 pounds, which is what the system is looking for. So I'm just going to go ahead and give everything a once over, and then we can give it a test fire, see if it fires up or if we're going to be disappointed. But I think it's going to fire up. Let's find out. One other quick thing that I did off camera was I installed a vent for the fuel cell. It does need to be vented, so I've got this 10 AN line, just goes up and over into here, and then it is just hooked up to that breather right there. So that will vent perfectly, and I'm pretty sure that will pass tech for sure. So let's move on to getting the engine started up. Why don't we do that? All right, let's start it.
Nice.
Hell yeah! That is awesome. Got some happy dance going on over here. That is really cool. So we are ready to go. I just need to hook up the radiator and clear out all this cloud, and we'll be all set. That's going to end it for this video. That's a pretty successful ending. If you like what you've seen, go ahead and click that like button. If you really liked it, hit the subscribe button and click the bell to be notified when I release the next video. Thanks for watching the Falcon Project on Calico's Garage. See you next time.